Hi everybody, I'm Trin Johnson and welcome to Dust in My Eye. Today I'm going to be painting these beautiful fall leaves and I'm using a Frixion pen to sketch them in. So it is an erasable pen and it erases with not just friction but heat, which is friction. And so we're going to use a blow dryer to get rid of our lines. If this sounds interesting to you, then stick around. And if you could hit that like and subscribe, that would be wonderful. So let me just get these out of my way. And I'm using a sheet of arch paper, 100% cotton, 140 pound. It's on a block. And I am just going to sketch these in one at a time. I don't have to get really, really picky because the pen's going to disappear. So that pressure is gone. I just want to get it roughed in. Also, it's a leaf, so if it has an extra little point here or an extra little jog there, it really doesn't matter. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. So as long as I end up at about the spot where I started, then I'm okay. And that's the first one, and just want an idea of where I want the stem to be. And now the second one is a little smaller, and I'm going to stick that right up next to it. And again, I'm not trying to draw this leaf exactly. I just want a rough estimate of a leaf. And in fact, it's not quite where I want it, so I'm going to erase just a little bit, just so I'm sure when I'm painting it what line I want to follow. I don't really like to use the eraser on this pen. It kind of smears. So I don't really recommend doing that. Just kind of enough off of there to know which line to follow. And now this is from my weeping cherry tree and ornamental cherry tree. I'm not sure. I think it's a weeping cherry tree. And I thought it had some interesting colors and it's got more of a serrated edge. So that's the part I'm trying to convey with this leaf. It's also folded over, so that makes it kind of interesting in that way too. And it doesn't matter if the stem crosses over the other stem because I'm going to paint it on top. And then when I use the blow dryer, it will just disappear. You could use a heat gun too. I tend to use a blow dryer. And just getting a little bit of detail in. Although I have found that if you really wet the leaf a lot ahead of time, your lines will disappear with water too if you use too much of it. Generally speaking, it's not a problem, but if you really go like a big, heavy, wet the page kind of wash to drop color into, it doesn't hold the detail quite as well. So I'm going to start with some sap green and some green gold, both Daniel Smith. Most of this is Daniel Smith. And then I've got some new gamboge and some yellow ochre that I'm putting out. And I'm going to change to a smaller brush so I can get more detail more easily. Just trying to work wet on dry, but with enough, have it being wet enough that I can still drop color into the other color. But I don't want to lose my pen marks. Just dropping in some yellow ochre. It really doesn't matter. As long as I stick in that color family, I'm going to get that impression of a leaf. I'm going to get that goldy green leaf. So use what you have. If you don't have those colors exactly, then use what colors you do have. You can always add a little bit of brown to a yellow to get a more ochre kind of a feel. And now I'm using some Van Dyke brown. Van Dyke brown is a really dark brown. I find it's darker than my sepia. And I wanted to get those little spots on the leaves. Really pretty to paint, probably not really great for my tree. And then there's just a little hint of a rusty color on there that I wanted to get in there. So that leaf was really pretty easy. See, and now what I'm trying to do is put a shadow on the inside of the leaf so that you can really tell that it's folded over. So I am using just a little titch of the brown. And then I'm trying to blend it in a little bit because I don't want to out and out line. And a little on the tip too. And some along the edge, a little bit of dotting to get the serrated bits. Now I'm moving to the next leaf, and I'm starting with a cadmium red, and I've got pyrrole orange, and I also have some quinacridone rust. And I am trying to paint this one and leave space for all the little yellow bits that are here and there in the leaf and all along the veining. And I found that if I took it a leaf section at a time, it wasn't so overwhelming. That way when I come in with the yellow, it will be on the white paper and it will pop more. It won't get so muddy. Now I have a little deep scarlet that I'm using also to darken along the edges. And on to the next section. A little more deep scarlet. I'm trying a little Van Dyke brown in there to deepen it, because the tip is like flipped over, and so it's a little bit different color. Again, I'm trying to leave the veining with some space. A little more deep scarlet. A little more deep scarlet. I'm trying to get the darker parts of the leaf a little darker, a little different than the main body of it. Now I'm going to work on the big leaf, and I'm getting some pyrrole orange and some new gamboge in it. Adding a little more green to my greens. Now this leaf, I'm leaving space at the veining again, but I'm also dropping the green in with the orange as I go along. One section at a time. And see, I'm going to just fill in a little bit because there's a lot of green over in that part. Darkening along the edge a little bit. On to the next section. Now I'm dropping some green into this section also. And going back for another layer in the other section. I would say that the red leaf was the hardest one to get it to convey what I was seeing. The other two were pretty easy to just drop color in. Still moving section by section. This one's got more orange than it has green, so it's a little more straightforward. But again, I'm leaving that veining just a little bit. Trying to drop a little more deeper scarlet in there. Especially along the points and the very edge of the leaf. Dropping a little green in. Trying to make a little bit darker color. I reached for the Quin Violet that's up above too. Get a little of that pinky, bit pinkier tone. Darken that up a little bit. Now my perspective on these leaves is a little different than yours because I was looking at them a little more sideways. I've gone back in with the yellow. I think I used the new gamboge, and I'm just filling in all my little holes. Now I'm just trying to mix up a nice neutral browny greeny kind of color to do the stems. The stems are kind of hollow. They're like curved. They're not a complete like straw. But they're a little bit hollow at the end. You can see the curve, and I was trying to get that to show. Nice thing about that pen is you can just draw right over top of the other object, and then you can decide when you're painting which one you want to be on top and which one you want to put on the bottom, because the lines aren't going to matter because they're going to go away. And I'm just trying to get a little shadow with my Van Dyke brown just along the bottom edge of my leaf stems. Did it on this one too. You have to get the right consistency. It has to be thick enough and with enough pigment in it to show up easily, but thin enough to glide with the brush. So you're not like forcing it onto the paper, it just glides on. And that can be kind of tricky to do sometimes. The better the brush, the easier that is to do. That definitely helps. Now I'm just trying to make sure that first leaf is completely dry because I want to come back in and put in the brown spots. And there's a bunch of brown spots right along the veining also. And a little bit along the edges, just trying to make that leaf pop. A little more yellow and green on that leaf in the trying to do the veining where I left space. trying to darken, get a little bit different brown to use, a golden brown on that leaf. And then a little bit of the dark spots on this leaf too. A little bit of brown on the edges. It will be easier to see what it needs once I get rid of the pen marks too, because right now I can still see the pen marks, and that's giving them kind of an outline. Now I'm trying to mix a nice big neutral color. Add a little indigo to gray it out a bit, but I added a little too much indigo, so then I went back up into the red, and I want a really watery kind of consistency because I want it really pale, and I'm painting in the shadow, which is going to make the leaves look like they're sitting on the table instead of floating in space. I keep trying to adjust the leaf and the light so I can see where the shadow would be. Again, your perspective is a little bit different than my perspective. I don't need a big, heavy shadow to make it look like it's got purchase. Just enough. Now I'm going to come in close and move the leaves so they don't blow away and get the hair dryer out. Now hopefully you can see it taking away the lines. You can really see it just lost the line across the bottom of the leaf where the stem from the red one crossed. And it just removes all your pen lines. I think that was probably the most noticeable spot. Now I'm going to zoom back out and do a little bit more detail, because now I can see exactly what's going on because I don't have that pen work anymore. I'm going to use some Inktense pencils, and I'm just picking out a few different ones. I have some browns and some rusty dark reds and a bright yellow and a bright green, and and I'm not sure exactly which ones I'm going to use. I decided on this rusty reddish kind of orangey color to do the veining on the cherry tree leaf. A little bit of spots. Now if I add water, if I do a wash over top of that, that Inktense pencil will bleed. So if I thought I was going to add more watercolor to it, I shouldn't do this part yet. Generally speaking, with Inktense, I like to wet them first if I'm going to draw with them. I get a more intense color, and that's what I'm doing here. Just trying to deepen up those spots. And a little bit of the bright green too. Now I've got some brown, just trying to get more of those brown spots in. Work on that curve on the leaf stems a little bit. Now I'm just using a little bit of the light green, bright green I should say, on the big leaf. I don't want to do too much work with the pencils. And just adding a little more darker red shadow on that leaf. Well, I think that's it. This was kind of a fun project to paint. You should go out in your yard and find some fall leaves and see if you can drop some color down. And you can pick up a Frixion, whatever it is, easily on Amazon or Blix or in your Target store or a business supply store like Staples or anything like that. And they're pretty interesting to use. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you would like to, please check out my Etsy shop where I have prints of my artwork along with cute little monsters and some other fun stuff for sale. Until next time, thanks so much for watching.